New with you, just get out of a nice 2-hour long meeting.
You know, it actually, it went a little bit short. And then I took my dog for a walk. And and I walk by this garage every once in a while, and when it's open, I just ogle their home gym setup.
Oh yeah.
So I was talking to the one of the owners of it. I don't really think she knew what was in there. It must be like her husband's or something. But yeah, I was like, if you ever want to sell any of that, like I'm in the market.
Oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, that's one of the things you wanted to do with your spot, right?
Yeah, I put together. So I got adjustable dumbbells. I got a few bars. I got a rack with a pulley system, kind of a cheap rack. Got some weight, got some plates. My big splurge was a reverse hyper.
Okay.
And now I'm just waiting for my adjustable bench to come in, and I'm pretty much set after that.
Oh, you don't even need to go anywhere. Are you, because you now, how's the house and everything going? You're all moved in and comfortable and doing well?
Yeah.
Yeah, because and school's been going okay?
Yeah, school's pretty good. We're like week and a half of classes left.
Are you doing it on Zoom or are you doing it in person?
They are a mix. So my sport nutrition is all online. And then I teach this freshman class that is like intro to lab methods. And so my lectures are online and my labs are in person. Sport nutrition is really cool. Like it's all seniors that have had 2 semesters of ex-phys.
Okay.
And it's amazing the difference in teaching that class with the like students that have that background versus when I taught it at Coastal and it was all sophomores who had never been exposed to like any science before, really.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
The ironic thing about your old schools, they're actually not bad at football now.
I know, it's crazy.
You leave and they start doing well.
Right?
You have much sports there?
Well, we're not. I mean, there's the ODAC, the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, canceled all their all their fall games. Yeah, so there's nothing happening. But the big part of the school is like athletes. I want to say, I forgot the number, but I want to say maybe 30 to 40% of the entire school is NCAA athletes. Which is kind of
how big's the city?
The city of Lynchburg is about 100,000 people.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not like a big city, but it's not small. It's like Chico. Chico's 90,000. You still kind of have a little bit of a hometown feel, maybe, but it's not as crazy as like frickin' LA or something like that.
Yeah. It's cool. It's got a nice little downtown. They're putting a good amount of effort and like resources into revitalizing the downtown. So I think we came in at a nice time when one of my friends from grad school that kind of recruited me to the school, he started in 2010. He was like, when I moved here, there were 2 restaurants downtown, and one of them was like an IHOP. And now there's a bunch of restaurants and breweries and bars and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
How are you guys doing with like opening up? Or do you feel comfortable going out, or where's that like?
Yeah. We really don't have time to go out too much. So we've like been downtown for a date night, maybe like 3 or 4 times since we've moved here. But aside from that, yeah, it's the numbers are still relatively low. In like contrast to some other places in the country. And part of that is, people wearing masks and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then another big part of that is the population density.
Yeah.
It's not like New York or LA where everyone's on top of each other. So.
Yeah, so I always love the comments from people because we're open technically. And so, students will be working out with masks on and the classes are small, like 6 to 8 people.
Yeah.
You get people commenting on there like, why are you being a sheep and blah, blah, blah. It's like, obviously you don't get involved, but it's, it's crazy times, right? It's crazy times.
It is. And you have like these two ends of the spectrum, right? You have the people who don't believe in any sort of science and call you sheep for wearing a mask. And then it's like you post a picture of yourself and a family member online, like a selfie, and you're not wearing masks, and people are calling you out for it.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, like I live with this person.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want from us?
That's crazy.
Shut up for a second.
Right? Yeah. Well, you got me beat. It's happy hour for you. I'm jealous. I gotta get a little leg workout in after this, and then I'm gonna start drinking. But I always appreciate you taking time. I mean, you're always busy. So, what are some things that are on your plate right now? Do you have some projects in mind? Because you're always packed up.
I don't have any of my own at the moment because all the research is shut down due to COVID. There's no in-person research that's happening. So I'm mentoring an undergrad student research project, and she's looking at perceptions of caffeine ergogenesis in NCAA swimmers. So do swimmers think caffeine impacts their performance, and how do their perceptions interact or relate with their habitual caffeine use? So that's all survey based though.
Okay.
And that's really like all I have going on. I'm also on a dissertation committee with Darren Willoughby and a student at Baylor who's got a really cool dissertation idea involving betaine supplementation and blood flow restriction training. So that's like right up my alley. I'm reading through his proposal right now, and it's got me kind of like goosebumpy and excited. So that's really cool. But that's it, man. As far as projects go, they're like happening at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you taking your time to chat a little bit more. I had a couple students that were sending me over that conversation. There was a YouTube with Layne, and he was talking about, and I totally understand where they're going with the growth hormone, and how not only the fasting community, they don't really understand what's going on with growth hormone, but you get a lot of bros who talk about growth hormone, and you can just tell they don't have a foundation and they really understand what it does. And so I was hoping just to get some more, more in depth application and theory from, someone who knows what they're talking about growth hormone, because I came through like the Kramer era, and, resistance training was big into hormones, and it was all about, you got to hit this rep range because you got to get growth hormone, and you got to go heavy because you got to get testosterone. But now the tables have kind of changed a little bit. So I was hoping to pick your brain on that stuff.
Yeah, I'm familiar with all that because I was reading a lot of that when I was first getting into exercise science as well. And like our understanding has deepened, but the overarching principles still remain, right? If you want to maximize strength adaptations, and this is in someone who is relatively trained. Obviously, if you're working with someone who's never lifted weights before, then you can do just about anything with them and they'll get stronger. So that being said, someone who's relatively well-trained, we'll just say a year or two of resistance training under their belt. If you want to maximize strength adaptations, then you need to lift heavy. You need to be doing a majority of your work in that less than 5 rep range. And if you want to maximize hypertrophy adaptations, at least in terms of efficiency, then you need to be lifting with a higher degree of volume. And that's usually best accumulated somewhere between 8 to 15 repetitions, give or take. And that in terms of total number of repetitions is going to give you the most efficient muscle hypertrophy. Now, this is just kind of like a side note. You can obviously induce muscle hypertrophy with much higher repetitions than that and much lower repetitions than that. But in terms of like time spent in the gym and effort, that's probably the most efficient. And so all that being said, that's still the best way to go about lifting for those particular goals. And it just so happens that those two types of training, kind of the lower rep range, typically induces a slightly greater acute testosterone response, and the higher rep range induces a greater growth hormone response. But we're coming to find that those acute hormonal responses are not the reasons for the adaptations. They have, I don't want to say nothing to do with the adaptations, but they have a lot less to do with it than we once thought.
Now, if you were to go to your doc and get a blood chemistry, and you say you have 400 units per deciliter with your testosterone, if you were to start lifting heavy, could that potentially go up, or is that going to be more of a chronic aspect?
That's a great question. More than likely, if you're a male under the age of, say, 35 or 40, whatever that age happens to be, and your testosterone is in that range, then it's likely lower than the average.
Mm-hmm.
And that low testosterone could be due to a number of factors. So one could just be genetics. Some people just have higher testosterone and lower testosterone than others. So let's rule out genetics, and let's say that you should be at the average, which is probably for a 30-year-old man or a 25-year-old male, somewhere around like 500 to 600. So the lower testosterone, it could be due to stress. More than likely, stress, poor sleep, just poor behaviors have an effect on it. So if you're not exercising, and then you change and start exercising and start adopting healthier behaviors, so getting more sleep, stress management, as I take a sip of bourbon ginger, not drinking.
Yeah, to cut you off real quickly, I am curious that the side talk on that one, but do you think that the lower testosterone from alcohol comes from the lack of sleep because you're not getting into deep REM, or is it actually specific to alcohol in itself?
It is, if I recall correctly, it's probably both. Mm-hmm. Definitely some of it is going to be due to the sleep disruptions, but some of it is also specific to alcohol itself. I think it inhibits the Leydig cells in the testes a little bit, which produce the testosterone, and as a result of that, your pituitary, at least acutely, actually produces or starts generating a little bit more LH, or luteinizing hormone, and that luteinizing hormone is one of the triggers to increase testosterone production. And that's why, like, despite your testosterone levels going down acutely as a result of drinking alcohol, you're oftentimes more horny due to that luteinizing hormone.
Love it. That's why I usually drink during the day, so then I get a little better sleep at night, and then I can give myself a pat on the back and say my testosterone is going to be fine.
Yeah. So, So back to your question. The lifting probably will have a very small impact on basal testosterone levels.
Because you also have to, and these are things that people don't, or they'll just kind of cherry pick the data, where you could have a guy who's 35 and he has android obesity, and he starts lifting weights and he starts getting stronger, and his testosterone levels start going up significantly, and they're like, oh, it's because he was lifting heavy. No, he also lost 20 pounds of excess adiposity, and he's sleeping better, and his stress isn't as, so it's like, it's always just multifactorial, and not always, but a lot of times it's multifactorial. It's not going to hurt you, but it's maybe going to help a little bit, but maybe not as much as some people are going to say.
Yeah.
And so could we talk a little bit more about maybe just a general understanding of growth hormone and like the family that it's in and the role that it plays in, some people will even say, some people, when we talk about the role of growth hormone, I'd like to learn more about how it's an anabolic hormone. It's in that umbrella, but it sometimes has catabolic properties. because it breaks down fat, or, that's something I want to learn more about as well.
So yeah, growth hormone is quite interesting because number one, it's a peptide hormone. It's released by the pituitary. And it impacts a number of different tissues. And so we see that growth hormone levels follow they're cyclical. You have greater levels typically during sleep and lower levels typically during the day. So growth hormone has, in addition to being an anabolic hormone and affecting growth and development, and is more anabolic during growth and development than it is in adults, especially when we're talking about endogenous growth hormone and not exogenous, not administered as a performance enhancing drug or therapeutic or whatever. So endogenous growth hormone in adults, it does play a role in tissues in terms of anabolism. However, it also functions as a stress hormone. And so exercise poses a stress. And what we tend to find is that the reason why you're seeing this greater growth hormone production with higher repetition training, so with your typical hypertrophy prescription of moderate load, like 70% of the 1 RM, and moderate repetitions, 10 or 12 reps, and a higher volume, et cetera, is because that type of training has a large metabolic demand to it. So there's a large metabolic stress associated with it, and as a result, growth hormone is released. And that growth hormone is more released to ensure that adequate fuels are available, more so than it is released to induce protein synthesis and hypertrophy or act in some sort of anti-catabolic way, or to reduce protein breakdown.
So then sorry, go ahead.
And so, let's see here. Hang on a second. So here's the thing that a lot of pros, or whatever you want to call them, don't seem to realize. Got my board in there.
I'm ready to go. This is my favorite part.
All right. So as far as growth hormone goes, right, we have wake. Let's just say we wake up at 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. the next day. Then here's our sleep, I don't know, 10 p.m. We know that without exercise, growth hormone kind of looks like that, right? We have this spike while we're sleeping. Then we'll add in an exercise training session. Just put EX there for exercise. And we also get this bump in growth hormone. Now, this increase in growth hormone as a result of exercise is transient. And it's only going to last anywhere from 30 minutes, 2 hours post-exercise. And so this idea that this amount of growth hormone is going to have some impact, or some major impact, I should say, on muscle hypertrophy and adaptation, it's kind of illogical when you compare it to what would happen if someone was using growth hormone as a performance-enhancing drug. So they were using exogenous growth hormone, in which case you would A, see much higher levels, and then B, when that growth hormone is administered, much higher levels that remain high for longer periods of time. And so you have this much greater, longer area under the curve in terms of growth hormone. And the same thing is occurring in regards to testosterone, the testosterone response to resistance training. So this release in growth hormone that occurs as a result of exercise, resistance training, is a stress response to liberate and make sure adequate fuels are available for exercise and recovery as well.
And so that can be used probably in the same situation or same comparison to something like fasting, because there is essentially a stress on the system and more fuel needs to be made readily available. And so growth hormone is acting in that way because of the stress to the system without fuel. Is that kind of similar?
Yeah, exactly. So you're fasting, your blood glucose levels are low, or there's stress to maintain adequate blood glucose levels so that your central nervous system and brain have enough glucose to function. And so growth hormone increases lipolysis, or the breakdown of triglycerides from adipose tissue. And those free fatty acids can then be used predominantly by the liver and skeletal muscle as fuel. And then the glycerol can be converted to glucose via gluconeogenesis in the liver. So that growth hormone that's being released as a result of fasting is being released to help maintain blood glucose levels. And it is being released in response to the stress of low glucose and low fuel availability. It's not being released to induce any sort of anabolism. In fact, for anabolism to occur in skeletal muscle, adequate energy and fuel availability is necessary. So that's kind of a misunderstanding of growth hormone's role being applied to a certain ideology of eating. I just lost your sound. Hang on, how about now? Weird. Hang on. Hang on, I gotta, hang on a second. You there? I still can't hear you. Wait, no, I still can't hear you.